If you've ever been curious how to create that effect of light coming right out of the canvas, then this lesson is designed for you. This is a time lapse. The full lesson is available on my Patreon. It's about an hour long. I want to explain what this photo is just so you know what you're looking at. This photo is from the Rocky Mountains. It's taken with a long exposure, so it's a little bit blurry, a little bit eerie. And it kind of reminded me of something out of Lord of the Rings. It really evoked a lot of like an eerie, creepy emotion. And so I wanted to translate that into paint. So I used the photo as a jumping off point. There's a little crescent moon that you can barely see up there. So we're going to put that crescent moon in as well. First step with this is just draw everything out. If you're at home, I recommend watching the full lesson on my Patreon and following along. It's designed for you to follow each step, the color mixing, and paint along so that you can learn how to pull that light out of the canvas. All right, so now what I'm going to do is get to the color mixing here. What I teach all of my students who are beginner or intermediate level is to key your darks in first when you're painting light, when you want to actually paint the feeling of real light. Get some of your darks in so that you develop the key for the painting. Right here, I'm just mixing up an off black. It may look black on the white canvas, but it's nowhere near jet black as you can see on the palette. It's actually more of a reddish color. Having this dark in just helps you put the next puzzle piece in. Without it, you can key in, you can start with your middle values, which is in fact what I actually do a lot more nowadays. I don't really key my deepest dark in. I kind of start in the middle value range. But for the purposes of making the lesson easier to understand, it's easy if you just put your dark down to put this blue gray down right next to the dark, because you can then judge that value. So if you start with the top of the painting, like a lot of people when they paint a sky, they start at the top and they work their way down. Bad idea. Start from the horizon and work your way up and down at the same time. Work on the whole painting at the same time. Okay, by getting these darks in, and now I'm shifting as we get closer to the source of the sunlight, right over the mountains, it's kind of just, the sun is tucked behind, and I'm going to put this pure dash of red right here. Watch this. It's bright red from Winsor and Newton with a little bit of alizarin in it and a little bit of yellow. And because I keyed in all those darker colors correctly and not too light, I'm able to put that pure dash of bright red down. And so you get a really interesting, eerie effect. And I'm going to push these colors more as we work our way through the painting. I just wanted to get a note down at the start so you could see what we're kind of working up towards. It's not going to look like the photo. This painting is not going to look like the photo that much at all. It's just a jumping off point. So I'm adding a little bit more bright red, but it's still very subdued around that light source. So it creates sort of a halo. So this lesson is actually an older lesson. It's about 2 or 3 years old on my Patreon channel. It's still up. It's still available. It will always be available on there. All my old lessons are. But I'm using a very small brush. And you might be thinking, well, that's kind of odd. I don't really use a small brush in this way anymore. Over time, my lessons have evolved, which I think is a great thing, because on my Patreon, there's tons of different styles of teaching. I used to paint a lot tighter than I paint now. So over time, you can go back and watch the old lessons and learn some more like glazing and layering and all those kinds of techniques. Now I'm more focused on teaching specific principles when it comes to like how much paint to use, how to do your texture and edges and all that kind of stuff. So there's something for everyone. I put that blue sky around that crescent moon. So I painted right up to the edge of it. And so that crescent moon is actually just blank canvas. But later we're going to go in and I'm going to show you how in just a few strokes I lay that moon in. It's important when you're mixing color to not have too much colors on the palette. I work with a split primary palette. So I actually just have a warm and a cool of each primary. That's what that means. So I have a warm and cool yellow, warm and cool red, warm and cool blue, and white. And that's it. You can mix any color you need from those colors. I don't have secondary colors. Secondary colors are colors like green and purple that are made from 2 of the primaries. Orange is another one. So I don't have any of those. I mix my own. And it's easier to create color harmony if you do it this way. All right, so now I was looking at the clouds and there's this weird softness. There's like a layer of a cool blue cloud, and then there's these more red lit clouds in front. So I changed the temperature of those background clouds because skies are layered, right? You've got the blue part of the sky, then you've got maybe some wispy translucent clouds, and then you'll have more thick clouds that the water is congregating together, the air particles. And so what I'm doing is I'm just trying to create that sense of the sky being layered. And it's essential with skies that you paint them in one layer, that you do it all in one sitting. You can't really just paint the blue part and let that dry and then try to come over the top and paint the clouds. It's a terrible way to paint skies. Atmosphere needs to, there's so much complexity to the edges. You'll have really soft edges and hard edges. And if you try to paint a sky in that layered approach, it's just going to be too hard edged. Unless you're really masterful and you're good at working into an oiled out layer and understanding how to scumble and all that stuff. But by and large, you'll find that almost all really high level landscape painters are doing the majority of their paintings actually wet in wet. And then they'll come in and layer details and things like that over the top. All right, so the blending phase. What I do is I get all that paint down and then I grab a big white nylon blending brush. They're really just acrylic brushes that are soft white nylon. This one doesn't look white anymore because I've used it so much. And I do, back then, about 3 years ago when this was filmed, I did little tiny downward strokes to blend all of the colors together and get all of the brush marks out. I don't do that anymore. On my new videos, I use a metal knife to blend. But like I said, I recommend joining the Patreon, another shameless plug, and you'll get to see that difference in technique and decide for yourself what parts you want to pick up and what parts you don't agree with me on and you don't want to use. That's how you develop your technique, by the way. You just learn from different people, spend your time with them, decide what you're going to pick up and what you're going to leave behind. All right, so now I'm grabbing just white and a little bit of yellow on a round brush, and I start in the middle of the moon, and I just put a little chunk of thick paint, and I then use the brush to drag the thick paint from the center up into the wet blue sky and then down into the wet blue sky on both sides of the crescent moon. And then I'll drag with my finger a little bit of the blue sky into that. And the reason you want to do everything wet and wet instead of waiting for it to dry, see, I just erased that. Now I'm going to try it again. I'm going to move the moon over there, and I'm just going to put a chunk of the thick white down, and I'm going to push the paint around and blend it, and then re-put in the white right here. The reason it's better to do this wet and wet is because I can push that paint around. See how I'm swiping through until I get the moon to look like the perfect soft little half circle or whatever. If you were to do this and wait for the blue sky to dry and then come in, it's just not going to look realistic. The crescent moon is going to look stuck on like you taped it on or did it with a stencil. All right, now I'm pushing those lights. So this whole thing is like orchestrating everything to support these bright colors. By waiting until the end to put these colors in, I can ensure that my painting has that illumination. If you go at the start and you start with the bright red, it's not as easy. I've done it before. You can actually key the bright reds down and then key everything to those too, which I've taught on the channel. But this way I have found is the best. So I'll put those bright colors down and I will just blend them right back into the cool grays. And then I'll come in again and I'll push them. The benefits of working wet and wet like this just cannot be overstated. All right, so we're getting to the end here. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. Did you just see that paper towel trick there? Every now and then on a small painting that's smaller than the paper towel is wide, I will drag it down and just blend all the paint in one swoop. And all right, here, I'm putting that bright red down. It may not even show up on your camera or your laptop, but in person, that bright red is fully saturated. But cameras do not quite capture red. if you've ever tried to take a photo of a smoky red sun, a bright red sun, when you take the photo, it just looks white. Same thing with paintings. Photos don't capture the bright reds quite as vibrant as they are in person. So what you do is you grab pure bright red or cadmium red or whatever you want to use, and you pop that right down, and that creates that pop. All right, I want to thank everyone for watching this. And once again, please visit my online school. If you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe. You can visit my Patreon and check out some previews there as well. And you could subscribe for as little as $5 a month. The majority of people join at the $15 tier, but I actually do now have one-on-one mentorship. So I work with you one-on-one over Zoom. We do one Zoom call a month, and then through the month you have a special private email, which all of the students have, and we all kind of shoot stuff off of each other and send our art to each other to get advice and all that. So it's a really fun community, and I recommend that you check it out. All right, thanks.